Okie dokie. So just a bit of quick acknowledgement for the Michigan Department of Education. The TA Center works on behalf of MDE, and MDE has been a big supporter of our TA Center's work to support MTSS across the state of Michigan, as well as a big supporter of our work around the MiMTSS data system. We also couldn't be doing this data system work without our collaborators at the Michigan Collaboration Hub through MAISA. Our lead developer for the data system is works out of Ottawa area ISD, and we wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we have with this system if not for Ron Oskin. So we really appreciate his support and our connections to Michigan Data Hub. Today, we just have an hour, so we're not actually going to take a formal break, but if you need to step away from the computer and take care of your own needs, feel free to do that at any point. We won't probably do any breakout rooms in this session today, but I do have a couple of places where we'll pause and give you an opportunity to do a task or an activity. I have at least one Menti built in, and then we'll ask you to use the chat box periodically as well. Thank you for those of you who are on camera. I don't expect that everyone has to be that way, but having at least a few people on camera really does help me be a better presenter to get some reaction from all of you. So thank you for those of you who are able to and willing to do that. Let's see. So this is, I have kind of a formal presentation prepared, but I do want to make sure that since you're here and we're together live, that whatever questions you have, that you feel comfortable just asking those. If there's a particular reason why you attended this session, make sure that that gets answered either directly through the presentation. Feel free to chat me the question or comment that you have, and if we don't have time to cover it all together, I will try really hard to follow up with each of you individually based on specific needs that you might have. At the end of the session, I'll try to preserve a few minutes for you to provide a little bit of feedback based on just a few simple questions about today's training session. One of the questions that you'll see at the end is related to a mission that we have at the Technical Assistance Center to positively portray diversity among educators and learners. I'll admit that I didn't do a lot of work around addressing that particular concept in this session. So if you see a missed opportunity or an idea, you have an idea to share with me, I'd love your comments on that particular question in the evaluation. So when you registered for today's session, this is the verbiage that you would have seen, a little bit of info about what the data system is and rationale for why we want to use data to drive our decisions about MTSS. In addition, in the registration process, these were the intended outcomes that were listed. So we're not going to cover everything in depth that someone who's been using the data system for 5+ years knows the ins and outs of how to do. This is meant to give you a better understanding of what capabilities exist with the data system and what you might find there. But there will always be more opportunity to dig in, and I'll try to share some of those resources for follow-up beyond this orientation. So here's our plan for our hour. We're going to talk a little bit about some data about the MiMTSS data system. And then we'll talk about personnel, user roles, how people get access as individual users to the system and what they can do there. Then we'll talk about what types of data can be entered into the system, and then how, once entered, those data are then available to us and to users on dashboards and in different reports within the system. And we'll end with talking about the process and giving you resources for how to sign up to use the data system, how to support your ongoing learning, and share ideas that you might have with us for system improvements. When I looked at our registration list of about 46 people, it looked to me like we had a combination of people attending who already were working within organizations that have an active use agreement for the MiMTSS data system, and a combination of people from other organizations who've not yet signed up to use the Michigan specific data system. So I'm sharing information with all of you today with that context and understanding that we have a really mixed group here. So let's talk a little bit about some data connected to the data system. If you know me, or as you get to know me over time, you'll know that I'm a data-driven person, and I really like and get jazzed about effective data visualization. So you can't find a presentation from me that doesn't have some sort of graphical representation of data in it. And so, of course, we're going to start that way. You might be wondering how many districts and ISDs in Michigan are actually already using this system. Like maybe this is the first time you've heard of it. So this is where our current counts are. As of the end of December, we have 218 districts, 46 public school academies, so 264 kind of LEAs altogether in Michigan who have active use agreements, and 33 ISDs. So this is not quite where we want to be. We want to keep increasing these counts. So we're hoping to get to about 45% of districts, 45 PSAs by the end of this school year, and to 35 ISDs. If you're wondering where kind of in Michigan those places are located, you can see here on the left, we've got ISDs represented. On the right, we have districts represented. The PSAs are a little bit difficult to plot on this type of kind of geographical space map. So those aren't fully noted here, all 46 of those.
Hello, this is Gary.
Hey, Gary, we can hear you. So if you're on a phone conversation, yeah, perfect. Thanks. All right. So we think that we can do better. We think that there's enough value in the data system for every Michigan district who's an ISD who's looking at supporting and focusing on MTSS to use the data system and find some sort of value in it, large or small. And so not only are we trying to increase the number of districts and ISDs who have awareness of the availability of this free access tool and can leverage it, but also we think that if we do a better job of giving people a better understanding of what they can do within the system and keep increasing the efficiency and the utility of what's there, that more people will use it and they'll use it more often. So we just went through a practice of closing out user accounts for individuals who hadn't logged into the data system, who had user access but hadn't logged in the past 365 days. So prior to November, we had quite a few more users, but a lot of those people were inactive users. And my hope is that we have very few of those user roles that we have to deactivate over time because they haven't logged in 365 days. Ideally, people are using this at least multiple points throughout a given school year. But to give you a sense of kind of where we're at right now, we've got about 45 statewide users, 145 ISD level users. So when you think about take those 145 people and divide those by the 33 ISDs that have active use agreements, we've got about 4 people per ISD who are using the system. And you can see how that breaks down for district and school users as well. So we think this could be higher. The rest of the presentation and the orientation is really going to focus around the top 5 actions that we see users performing within the data system. So we're going to start with, how do we manage user access for the data system, and how do certain users do that for their organization or for the organizations within their group? So as an ISD user, like how would you help support districts and schools within your ISD to manage access? We'll talk about what data can be entered and give you a little preview of kind of what that looks like. We'll talk about data that are available on dashboards and how those can be used for continuous improvement, as well as data that are available in different forms of reports. And the other action is that we hope people will do is they'll pull information right from the system and some of the graphs and visualizations that are built into the system and lift those right out and use those within your communication within your for your different collaborators and partners. All right. So let's talk a little bit about managing user access for your organization or the organizations that you support. So the first thing that I want to cover is how you can transparently see who has access to your organization's data and reporting. So who can enter it and also who can view it. So every user, the first thing that you'll see when you log into the MiMTSS data system is a dashboard. And that dashboard will be specific to the organization that you're affiliated with. So as a statewide user, I see a statewide dashboard when I log in. If you're a school user, or in this case, a district user, you're going to see your own district's dashboard when you log in. Each dashboard has a context tab, and you can click on that users with access button right there, and you'll get a list of everyone within your district and then within your ISD or at the state level who has access to your information. So we use that for transparency. And we also use that so that you can help manage the individuals with access. So at least a few times a year, we're hoping that you'll open up that report and say, "Ooh, so-and-so retired. We need to remove their access here," or Martha moved into a different role. And so we need to update the access in the affiliated facility for any given person. This slide helps unpack the different types of user roles that we have within the system. So we've got school, district, ISD, and state users. So those 4 levels. And then we also have different levels of data that are available within the system, school level, district level, ISD, and state level types of data. So if I'm a school user, I can only enter and view data for my own school. But if I'm a district user, I can enter and view data for all of the schools within my district. And then if you keep bumping that up the educational cascade, if I'm an ISD user, I can enter and view data for all schools within all of the districts in my area that have assigned use agreement. And for district level data, do that for all districts within my ISD that have assigned use agreement. So right when district and ISD superintendents are signing the use agreement, it explains that once data are entered into the system, it's automatically available to higher levels within the educational cascade. As state users, we can look at data from schools within all districts, schools within the districts with assigned use agreement across the entire state. Same for the ISD level. One of the things that I always want to say here, and you're going to hear me say it again, is that we don't house any individual identifiable student information in this system. We do house a little bit of student performance data in the system, but it's all aggregated. So the lowest level of aggregation is at a grade level. So no PII for individual students in the system. You'll see on this slide, we can have a district, an ISD, and a state role, a user role, plus that person could also be a local admin. And this is what our local system administrators can do. So ideally, there's about 1 or 2 people per organization, and they can access personnel records for individuals within their organization to add new users, remove user roles, in the case that someone leaves the leadership team and doesn't need access to the system anymore, or someone comes on to your leadership team and you need to add them. And you can assign users to specific schools or to specific districts if you're an ISD or district user. So we try to, our staff at the MiMTSS Technical Assistance Center who are supporting the data system really try to set up just the first set of initial users who are listed on the interest form. And then from there, we want the user access to be managed entirely by local folks. Okay. So not every set of kind of personnel information in the system needs to be managed by one of those local admins. There's some types of information that can be self-managed by individuals, whether they have login access to the data system or not. So if you are in the system, you might notice that there's like a lot of people connected to your organization, but maybe none of them or only a few of them have actual login access to the data system. And the reason for that might be that those people have attended a training session with the Technical Assistance Center. So we have their name, their district organization or affiliation, and an email address for them connected to our training records. But those people have never been given access to actually log into the system to enter data and to use dashboards and reports. So you can ask people to just self-manage using the registration portal for things like updating their name, their email, their professional roles, and contact information. But individuals can't go to this registration portal and grant themselves access to the data system. That has to be done by a local admin. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the different levels of user access and what that local admin can do. So I'm going to pause here a second. And I think we have some people joining our session today who don't yet have login access. Maybe you're just here to learn more about the system to see if it's something that you're interested in signing up for. But we probably have some people who do have login access and can already log into the system. So I'm going to give you two options for this activity. So if you can already log in, I want you to go ahead and take a peek at the list of people who have access to your organization's data. So you go to your context tab of your dashboard and click on that little button that says users with access. You could also update your own information in the system. There might be someone who you're like, oh, that person needs to be added, or that person needs to be removed. So you could go ahead and mess around with some of that user management if you're a local admin, or you could change affiliated facilities for a user. That's something also only a local admin can do. If you're someone who doesn't yet have login access, that's okay. Here's an activity for you. You could go to the registration portal here. I'm going to put the link to this login page in the chat in a moment here. And you can manage your own information to make sure that we have the updates, the correct set of info for you. You could also spend some time considering who from your organization maybe could have or should have access to the system, and of those individuals who might have the local admin role. My hunch is it might be you as someone who's expressed enough initiative to be here. All right, so I'm going to go over here. So this is the login page. I'm going to put the direct link to that in the chat, mimtssdata.org/mydata. Yes, I can share some information with you on how to delete a user. If there isn't any there's a couple pathways that you can go, and I'll just show you using my own personnel record. So I'm going to search for myself. I'm going to click include inactive, because sometimes we have people who have been marked as inactive, but they still exist and have a record. You're going to select that person. And there's a couple things that I can do. So maybe someone has left your district and taken a job somewhere else. In that case, what I would want to do is I would want to go up here and I would want to remove their user role in this MiMTSS data system user role section, so they can no longer log into the system with your current district's email. The other thing I would do is go to affiliated facilities. So Ottawa Area ISD is my current employer. So I would end date that facility and uncheck primary, so that they're no longer affiliated with your organization too. And so what you're not actually doing is actually deleting a personnel record, because a lot of times people are in the system and they're connected to a training event or some other type of source of information in the system. So we can't actually delete them. When we know that someone has left, retired and isn't going to be coming back in a year in another educational role, or hasn't gone to another district. In some of those few instances, we can check inactive, but in general, we try not to mark inactive unless we know that they're really not going to be an active educator that we would pick up in the system in another way. Does that help, Pam? Awesome.
It does. I was just, when I tried to edit the facility, it wouldn't let me though. So it says that a primary facility needs to be assigned for this person to be configured properly. Is that
Yeah,
what?
so probably what you need to do then, once you also remove the user role for that person, then then that red message will go away.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I'm just going to give maybe one more minute here for you to kind of get in, navigate a little bit to users. Definitions of the roles. So in this, I've got that in the slide deck here, but let me show you, excuse me. Here's the page on our website where this PowerPoint exists. So I'm going to put that hyperlink for you in the chat here. So you can have access to the information. It's also in the use agreement that people sign through the Michigan Data Hub cockpit. And we'll talk about that at the end of the session today, how you actually get signed up if you're not using the system already. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going then and move us into taking a peek at how data get entered into the system and what type of information we can enter. So here's a little list of some of the school level data that can be entered, the district level, and the intermediate school district level data that can be entered into the system. So we have a combination of things that can be entered related to measuring the implementation of MTSS, data systems and practices, and measuring the impact of that MTSS implementation on student outcomes related to behavior and literacy at this point. The places where you see the asterisks, again, are a reminder that where you see things like the student outcome data, like early warning indicators, discipline referral data, that's not individual student data, that it's aggregated information for your entire school or for an entire grade level within a school. Okay. So here's an example of what a school data entry screen looks like. It's honestly not anything very fancy. It's a set of links. So when you're logged into the system, everyone will see kind of these links in the top menu that go through reporting. My screenshot has administration because I'm as a system developer have that level of access. But you would go to data entry, and if you only have access to one school, that's what will pop up for you. But if you're a district or ISD user, you would search for the particular school or district that you're wanting to enter data for or look at data for how it was entered. In this field, make sure you've got the correct school year selected and hit select. So that data is organized under student outcome columns, Fidelity, installation checklists, and a little bit of kind of assignment of people serving in data coordination roles to specific schools. So nothing very fancy here. We get a little indicator when data have been entered for a particular metric in the given school year. Here's an example of what that student outcome data entry looks like. So right now, we do not yet have any integrations built in for student outcome data where like it's coming through Michigan Data Hub or something and then auto-populating in the system. This is currently all a manual process, although my hope is over the next year to 5 years that we have more and more data integration built in that's taking away some of the duplicate data entry tasks. But because we're only entering aggregate information, this is really not a big lift. It takes people who are familiar with what report they're pulling from and the fields that they're putting it into the system in. It's like a 5 to 10 minute task, probably for each student outcome data source. So Acadience reading is a measure of student reading performance. This is a K-6 entry screen. And so all people are entering for each grade level and time of year is the number of students who scored at or above benchmark, below benchmark, and well below benchmark on the composite score and the individual subtests. For discipline referrals, for example, if you're pulling that from your Swiss reports or your student information system, really what all you're putting in is, for example, what are the top 3 behaviors that have been documented in this given time period, the locations of those behaviors and the top 3 motivating factors. And then there's a space to enter some information about that helps us calculate some risk ratios across student racial subgroups. So again, this is not everything, but just give you sort of a glimpse and understanding of what some of that manual entry looks like for student outcome data. This is an example of what it looks like to enter fidelity and capacity data into the system. So if you're using the reading tiered fidelity inventory in Michigan, this is the only system that has specifically been designed to enter RTFI data. And so the fields for entry that are available include the date, kind of whether you paid attention to the pre-administration fidelity tasks, who administered the RTFI and who participated in that team administration. There's a spot to enter item scores and then add notes for individual items, and then save that at the bottom. The district capacity assessment, the regional capacity assessment data entry looks very much the same. We have a lot of schools in Michigan who are using the school-wide PBIS tiered fidelity inventory to measure their implementation of their PBIS systems. And the primary place for putting that information in is actually PBIS assessment through pbisapps.org. And we do have an integration built in where overnight, if you've entered a score into PBIS apps, it will automatically load into the MiMTSS data system. So that fidelity measure for MTSS does not need to be manually entered into this system if you put it in PBIS assessment. Here's an example of what a data entry screen looks like at a district level. So you see there's not like a student outcome section or a column there. So the primary piece that districts are entering into the system is likely a DCA, district capacity assessment. For districts who are going through a training series with the TA center, we have these things called installation checklists, which help kind of track the to-dos and action items coming out of one particular training before you head into the next training. And the ISD data entry screen looks very similar to the district entry screen. Actually, I think I might have put the wrong screenshot on here. This would say regional capacity assessment. I think I accidentally duplicated the district screenshot here. Sorry about that. Here's another way of looking at the types of data that are housed in the MiMTSS data system. So here's a list of capacity assessments, fidelity assessments for MTSS, student assessments, and other types of info. So that was like a quick run through of what it looks like to enter data into the system and the scope of things that can currently be entered. I'll say that that is changing over time. We're hoping to build in more integrations. And one of the things that pieces of feedback that we are hearing often from districts that would make the system more usable to them is if we had more sources of like student information available. So NWA is a really top requested assessment. And so we're going to be beginning conversations with Michigan Data Hub about how we might be able to leverage existing data that's already in the hub and data, especially that might already exist in aggregated format, and be able to push that into the data system for districts. So you can look at that NWA student outcome data alongside of your MTSS implementation fidelity data, for example. I think that's the real value of the system, is being able to put multiple pieces of data together to look at both the implementation of MTSS and the impact that that's having. All right, so I have a little Menti for you. Okay, so if you're familiar with Menti, I'm going to give you two options here. So you can go on your phone or your computer to menti.com and put in this code. You can also follow the link that I just put into the chat. And I'm just curious for folks who are participating in this particular session, what's your familiarity with these different types of assessments that are embedded into the system? So what you'll do when you get access to this is you'll kind of drag and drop these assessments into order of the one you're most familiar to least familiar with. Awesome. Thank you for working on this. While we're waiting for more responses to come through, if you have other questions at this point about data entry, the data sources that exist in the system, feel free to unmute and ask those aloud or type those questions or ideas even into the chat. Okay, I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds. Caroline, I see your comment in the chat. So if you have a few minutes to stay on afterwards, I can hang out with you guys, or we can just schedule another time to do it as well. And if that was mostly what you're hoping to get from the session, feel free to just take care of what you need to, and we can connect later.
No, we're learning a lot too, but we're kind of doing it all at once. So thank you.
Okay, good. All right, great. Okay, so we most familiarity with the school-wide PBI's tiered fidelity inventory and the district capacity assessment, as well as some discipline referral data. Okay, least familiarity with the regional capacity assessment. That makes sense to me because I think we have fewer folks on the call who are coming from intermediate school districts today, and the regional capacity assessment is a tool that's very specific to kind of the ISD level of implementation work. Right. All right. So that third kind of most common action that people are taking when they log into the data system is looking at data on dashboards, excuse me, as part of their continuous improvement efforts. Honestly, so I've done a lot of different things with the Technical Assistance Center since I started in 2007, but really this work on the data system is one of the things that's given me the most job satisfaction, I think, and has been one of the most exciting parts of my job. As someone who's really into data, like I really love the idea of having a tool and continuously improving a data tool that can be used by local educators to help not just collect the data, but also get it kind of organized and visually represented in a way that's kind of easy to understand and consistent to understand across multiple data sources. But then, so having those pieces kind of more automated so that teams can get into analyzing their data and really trying to figure out what it means and how it should inform next steps related to their MTSS efforts, and then use that data as part of a package of telling a story to different groups, to their educator colleagues, to people who are funding their MTSS work, to families and other community partners, to students themselves even. And so my hope is that the work that happens for a user role in the data system isn't really just about entering data and kind of having it prepared in a report, but really takes people all the way through to being able to do better storytelling to drive action. So I mentioned at the beginning of the session that when each user logs in, you're going to see first thing a dashboard that's specific to your organization. And those dashboards are organized into different tabs of data that you can toggle between from your home screen. So at a school level, these are the different tabs in the order in which they appear on a school dashboard. On a district dashboard, these are the lists of tabs that appear, and for an ISD. So there's some overlap in what those tabs are called and in the data that are displayed. So for example, you can see here that school and districts both have dashboard tabs called Reading Fidelity, but the amount of data and the way that it's organized is slightly different between a school and a district. So on a school dashboard, you're looking at just a single school's worth of reading tiered fidelity inventory to data. But at a district level, and this is where I think this adds a lot of value, especially for larger districts, is you get to see in one spot data from all of your schools who have entered reading tiered fidelity data over time without having to go school by school by school to understand that picture. So you can start looking at some patterns that you see across districts, and at the ISD level, start looking at patterns and scope of information that you have across your entire ISD. So I'm not going to do a walkthrough of every single one of these dashboard tabs. We're just going to focus in on a few today, and it'll be the ones that are bolded here. So we're going to look at school details and reading fidelity as just a few examples. So here's an example of what school details looks like. So this is a tab that's available to both ISDs and to districts. So what I've kind of blocked out here is you'd see each school name listed here as well as a district name. So this is from an ISD dashboard. So you can sort by any of these column headers. And then what you're seeing, this is like so tiny, so you're not meant to actually read this here today, but then you can see a summary of their most recent school-wide PBI's tiered fidelity inventory, their total score and each tier score. This will highlight in green if the score is above kind of that threshold for implementing with fidelity, that fidelity threshold. And what I don't have really displayed here is if you hover over one of these cells, it will tell you the date of that assessment. So sometimes you have schools who kind of are at different stages of MTSS implementation or who are on different schedules of collecting data. So it's going to show everyone's most recent score, even if those are coming from different school years or not exactly the same time frame. So you want to hover over to kind of make sure that you understand that context of how recent that data is. And this will also allow you to look at discipline referrals per students for 100 days. So we've got some behavior metrics at the top and some reading metrics on the bottom. And this can just be helpful to understand a couple things. One, the scope of schools and districts that are collecting data, that have data entered into the system. The other thing it's helpful for is at a glance, being able to kind of look at kind of how are we doing across implementation, and how do we see that maybe being connected to some student outcome data at a glance. Right, so in this particular ISD, I can see that a lot of schools are having some success with tier 1 implementation of PBIS, but that across our ISD, we have some more work to do to support our schools to get really good with their tier 2 and their tier 3 implementation. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a couple examples of that reading fidelity data. So here's a school dashboard tab view. Excuse me, I'm getting over a little cold. So one of the things, if a school has entered both RTFI data and Acadience reading data, which I hope in the future is expanded to multiple assessments beyond Acadience reading, but right now it is just Acadience reading. If you've entered that data, spring percent of students who are low risk or scoring at or above benchmark will populate here, and your RTFI total score will populate in the line graph. So you get a little, you can start connecting some of that information to say, do we start seeing a pattern between is improving our implementation of the reading components of an MTSS framework, resulting in an increase in students' reading performance. Okay, so that's a nice component that you'll see on the Fidelity. It's called Fidelity, but there's a little slice of student outcome data that's entered here. In addition, for my school, I can look at the tier scores over time. And this is interactive. So if I click on or off of the things in the legend, then it will hide and display different segments of these lines. You can also hover over the dots and it will tell you the very specific score and the date of the assessment as well. All right, so some of you who are really familiar with the RTFI know that this is looking a little bit different now. We've got tier 1 and advanced tiers will show up as a second scale. So take that same like total score that on an individual school dashboard is represented over here. On a district dashboard, this is what you can get. So here's a district that has 5 schools. So each of these dashed lines are an individual school. You can hover over to see what the school name is, the specific score, and the date of the assessment. But then this dark black line will also give you your district-wide average in these different time increments as well. So if you're a district that has, 2, 3, many more schools, having this view can be really, really helpful so that at a glance you get an understanding of what's the pattern of district performance on the or implementation of the reading components of an MTSS framework over time and currently. And then this will break down by like the tier 1 and the advanced tier subscales as well. All right. I am just going to pause here for a moment and see what sort of questions or ahas or thoughts are popping up as we think about what data are available for us on dashboards. Okay. The next thing that we hope people are doing in the system is, in addition to the dashboards, there's some additional information that can be gathered from other reports and be used for continuous improvement. Right next to the data entry section, you'll see a link called reporting. And this is where you can get some additional information. One of the things I'm like so happy about this fall that we were able to implement is we were able to transition from districts only being able to use these MTSS reports as a means of downloading a PDF to then upload into MyKIP for 3 different MTSS data sets to having that integration go live. So now if you're a MyKIP user and you also are a MiMTSS data system user and you have data entered into the MiMTSS data system, you can go into MyKIP integrations, turn on the integration between the MiMTSS data system and MyKIP. And then when you're building a data set in MyKIP, you can access basically all of the same data visualizations that are available on your district's dashboard. And pull those into your MTSS data set in MyKIP. So that is it's pretty slick. There are also some spreadsheet reports, so single measure reports. So sometimes you have like data geek, right? Maybe MTSS coordinator, someone who really wants to take a deeper dive into individual item scores across your entire district, for example, and look at those over time and maybe develop your own set of graphs. You can click on a single measure report and get more of like a spreadsheet download of specific data sets so that you can manipulate that, analyze it in different ways that are specific to your own needs. If you've got folks who are participating in training events with the Technical Assistance Center, so maybe your school team has signed up to go through a PBIS training series with the TA Center, you can go in here and look at the training evaluation data from those school teams too, to see how it's sitting with your teams. And we've also got some data on installation checklists. So just some additional reporting that can be more custom beyond what you can get from the dashboards, although the dashboards will probably be most people's go-to for looking at data in the system. The last thing we're hoping people do with their access to information from the data system is just pull it directly and embed it into whatever communication you need to send out to your different partners and collaborators who want to know how things are going with MTSS. So we hope that this is a time save for you to not have to recreate some of these graphs. So this is an example from Granville Public Schools. Their MTSS coordinator does at least an annual, but if not more often, newsletter about their MTSS work. And so you can see an example here of how Jason went to the district dashboard and for reading fidelity and for behavior fidelity, and just kind of isolated out just the district-wide average, and downloaded that particular graph and popped it right into his little report. All right. So before we close, I want to talk about how to get started if the system is something that you're not yet using, but after this session, you think there might be enough value in just checking it out. It's free, right? There's pretty low risk in signing up to use it and kind of playing around a little bit. So if you need some talking points to share with your superintendent, with some other collaborators on why the MTSS data system might be something that you want to sign up for, here are some talking points here. So as far as we know, for Michigan, this is the only tool that right now is allowing for the reporting and visualization of data in usable formats to specifically support continuous improvement planning for MTSS specifically. It provides a place to collect data that aren't really captured elsewhere related to MTSS inputs, implementation, and outcomes. There's so many more data systems that exist than when I started my work in education and started with the TA Center in 2007. So I don't think this is the ultimate system, but I do think it is a very helpful system when it comes to keeping records and around MTSS implementation and tying that to student outcomes. So one of the things among all the systems that exist out there, I think there are very few that are really focused on looking at implementation data and a lot more that help us to track student outcome data. Okay, so the value of this one is that we can kind of bridge a little bit those data sources and see how they interact with each other. And this is a system that's supported by MDE and our commitment to create an infrastructure that really supports the needs of the field by reducing burden, creating integration. And that's something that we're continuing to work on more and more over time as the state's capacity increases related to data hub and data integrations. On the TA Center website, MiMTSSTAC.org, if you go to the homepage and scroll all the way to the bottom, I think this is one of the fastest ways to find information on how to log into the system. So you get the login link right there, and then our webpage specific to getting more info about the system. When you click on that, this bottom link, more about the MiMTSS data system, it takes you to this page, which is baked under the evaluation kind of menu of our website. And there is a pretty detailed PDF resource right here that talks step by step how do you sign up to use the data system, and also gives you a login link right there. So in a nutshell, what happens is in the sign up process, if you're not already using the system or you don't have a signed use agreement for your organization yet, you or someone else would complete an online interest form. It's a very simple form that asks you, what is your district's name? Who's the person completing this form? What's your superintendent name? What's your technology director's name if you have that type of role in your district? And then what that does is it automates a message to Michigan Data Hub, who will then activate the use agreement in the My Data Hub cockpit and alert your superintendent via email. The next step then is that your superintendent or someone who they have designated within My Data Hub needs to electronically sign the use agreement. Once they've done that, the next overnight, one of our TA Center staff gets an email that says, hey, this agreement has been signed by this district or ISD. And the following day, our staff person sends an email to everyone who is named on the interest form that your account is active and that you have the user role. So they'll give you, if you're a district who submitted the interest form and signed the agreement, everyone who is named on that interest form would get an email that and access as a district user, including the local admin role, and then a link to information about how you add and manage other users for your system. Here's how we try to disseminate monthly information about what's new in the system and what's coming up. So we have a data system news that goes out to every single user in the system. So at the beginning of today's session, we talked about the 45 state users, the 100 and some ISD users, and so on. So everyone who has that a user role checked in the data system will get this monthly data system news. Sometimes it goes as spam, so you may have to check there if you think you're a current user, but you're not getting this. And we always have a feature story. We talk about newly released features. We have an update on which ISDs and districts have the use agreement signed. And then we give you an update about features that are in development for future release. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here a second and give you an opportunity to check your inbox to see if you've gotten this MiMTSS data system news. You could also go ahead and sign up to receive the MiMTSS data system news, or access the MiMTSS data system sign up process directions on the TA Center website. Thank you, Hamid. All right, so one of the things is that the way the system looks now is not the way that it's going to look and function 6 months from now. And that is a point of pride that we are continuously updating the system. And often those updates are based on user feedback around things that could be improved or enhanced within the system. And so we meet every 2 weeks to review user requests and newly identified needs. And so I just want to show you as users of the system. Oops, I thought I was here. We have these 2 links down here at the bottom of the system pages. So you can, if you've seen something that just does not look right, you can report a system error or problem, and that goes immediately to our developer and to me for stuff that we need to resolve right away. You can also submit a suggestion or a feature request at any point too, and we process those every 2 weeks. All right. I've lost my PowerPoint. So the last thing that I want to do today in our session is just give you a moment to complete our simple training evaluation here. So if you want to scan that with your phone, you can do that. The other thing that I will do is I will put the link, just a second, right into the chat. And I like to boast that any training session that I run has among the highest training evaluation response rates. So help me out there. That would be amazing. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and I'm going to stop the recording, but I really appreciate you all being here today. And if you have questions that are really specific to your own local context, you can hang on and I'll try to answer those for you. Or you can just send me a message in the chat or send a follow-up email and I'll try to connect with you individually as well.